Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation with a focus on a powerful concept. Do not get lost in the shadow. We'll explore the idea of avoiding stepping into a great man's shoes, which is Law 41. Over the next few slides, we'll uncover strategies and insights to help you stand out and lead with confidence. So let's get started. What happens first always tends to seem more impressive and original than what comes after. It's like the initial idea or achievement sets a high bar that's hard to surpass. And if you're fortunate enough to succeed because of a great man or a famous parent, the challenge doubles. You'll need to accomplish twice as much to truly outshine them and establish your own identity. It's important not to get lost in their shadow, because that can hold you back from carving out your own path. Instead, focus on creating your own name and defining who you are. Sometimes, that means changing course or taking a different approach. And yes, that can mean confronting the overbearing father figure, whether that's literal or metaphorical. Slaying that shadow involves asserting your independence and forging your own identity. Remember, the goal is to stand out on your own terms, not just to follow in someone else's footsteps. When we talk about growth, it's important to understand that sometimes we need to step away from the influence of those who came before us. The slide's title, The Shadow of the Giant, really captures this idea. To truly flourish, we can't stay in the shadow of a predecessor. Instead, we must find our own space, our own source of light. Think of it like a sapling trying to grow near a massive oak tree. The oak is impressive, majestic, and powerful, but its size also creates a shadow that blocks sunlight. Beneath its branches, very little can grow because the shade is too intense, and the roots absorb all the moisture. This illustrates that being under the shadow of a giant can limit your growth. That's where the oak tree effect comes in. It reminds us that we need to find our own sunlight, our own opportunities to thrive. So, in the context of our overall theme, it's about recognizing when you're overshadowed and having the courage to move forward independently, seeking your own path to success. Louis XV, often called the transgression in this context, is a fascinating figure in French history. He was the successor to Louis XIV, the Sun King, who had established such a powerful and centralized monarchy. However, Louis XV's reign was quite different. He didn't really have the same drive or desire to rule as his predecessor. Instead, he's often remembered for a more indulgent lifestyle. He spent a lot of his time indulging in pleasure and maintaining mistresses, which, unfortunately, meant that the state's affairs were left to deteriorate. This neglect contributed to a weakening of the monarchy's authority and stability. You can think of him as someone who failed to live up to the grand shoes left by Louis XIV. His inability, or perhaps unwillingness, to strengthen the monarchy ultimately led to its collapse shortly after his death. And it's interesting to note that his reign marked a period of decline, contrasting sharply with the grandeur and power of Louis XIV. This transition sets the stage for the turbulent times that follow, highlighting how personal choices and priorities of leaders can significantly impact the fate of a nation. After succeeding Philip, Alexander didn't simply keep the kingdom stable, he expanded it in unprecedented ways. He turned his attention eastward, setting his sights on Persia and India. But what's truly remarkable is how he embraced foreign customs along the way, blending cultures and creating an empire that was far larger and more diverse than anything his father, Philip, had ever envisioned. Alexander didn't just follow in Philip's footsteps, he surpassed him in every way. Now, it's important to understand that Philip of Macedon was himself a brilliant conqueror. His military campaigns laid the foundation for Macedonian power. But here's a fascinating point. Alexander, despite his youth, was deeply connected to his father's victories. In fact, he often wept at Philip's triumphs because he feared there might be nothing left for him to conquer. That shows us how driven he was, not just to match his father's success, but to go beyond it and forge his own legendary path. So, Augustus Caesar took a different approach compared to Julius. Instead of relying on dramatic military conquests, he focused on establishing a more austere and calm style of governance. His rule was characterized by stability and order, which we often refer to as Pax Romana. This shift in style wasn't just about policies. It was a deliberate effort to leave a lasting legacy by creating a peaceful and well-organized empire. While Julius Caesar was known for his action-packed, theatrical leadership as a soldier, Augustus understood that he couldn't compete with that kind of charisma. Instead, he crafted a new path, one that emphasized steady administrative strength over spectacle. This change not only helped solidify his power, but also define the foundation of the empire for generations to come. It's a clear example of how leadership styles can evolve to suit different circumstances and legacies. All right, let's dive into the key strategies for slaying the father of the organization. First, be ruthless. This means you shouldn't keep the old guard around because they'll often compare you to the past, which can hold you back. Instead, bring in your own team, people who align with your vision and who can help you forge a new path. Next, create distance. This is both physical and symbolic. Move away from the center of your predecessor's power. Establish a new headquarters or a new base of operations. This helps signal that you're charting a new course and breaking away from the old ways. And then, don't be afraid to disparage the past. It's important not to let the legacy of your predecessor intimidate you. Instead, find flaws or weaknesses in their legacy and subtly highlight them. This isn't about trash talking, but about demonstrating that you're building something better and different. All of this ties into what we call psychological independence. It's about freeing yourself from the influence of the past and establishing your own identity and authority. By being ruthless, creating distance, and subtly criticizing the old guard, you set the stage for a fresh start and a stronger leadership foundation. Let's talk about the strategy of changing the rhythm. Sometimes, you need to burn the past to ash so you can truly rise from it. By destroying the old way of doing things, you force everyone around you to look to you for the new way forward. This is about taking control and setting a fresh tone. When we think of the phoenix, it's a perfect symbol. Don't build on the foundations laid by others. They might crumble under your feet. Instead, lay your own foundations. Start new projects that are entirely yours, that reflect your vision and your strength. Now about shifting style. If your predecessor was very chatty and accessible, consider becoming more distant and enigmatic. Conversely, if they were austere, try being more lavish and expressive. Creating a contrast helps define your unique identity. Overall, this approach is about disrupting the status quo and establishing a new rhythm that's unmistakably yours, aligning perfectly with the idea of strategic change and leadership. But this is just a temporary tactic. Once you're established, it's crucial to pivot and assert your independence. If you don't do this, you risk being overwhelmed or even swallowed by the ghost you initially invoked. Sometimes, in the beginning, you're simply too weak to stand alone. That's when using the predecessor's name can be powerful, adopting their legitimacy to gain credibility and strength. This concept of revering the use of a name is a strategic move. It helps you leverage existing authority to build your own foundation. Remember, it's all about knowing when to shift from imitation to independence, ensuring you don't remain forever in someone else's shadow. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the sources behind the images we've seen today. First, we have an image from Reddit, which provides a glimpse into contemporary digital culture and community sharing. Next, there's an iconic photograph from Wikipedia of Augustus of Prima Porta, a masterpiece that highlights Roman portraiture and political propaganda. Moving on from Smarthistory, we see a detailed image of a classical sculpture, illustrating the timeless nature of ancient art and its influence on later periods. We also referenced a beautiful painting by Jean-Marc Nadir from Top Art Print, exemplifying French Rococo elegance and portraiture. Then, from Odd Things I've Seen, there's an intriguing photograph of an oak sculpture, reminding us of the importance of natural materials and craftsmanship in art. Finally, a striking abstract bronze sculpture from Vectisi captures modern artistic exploration, emphasizing themes like contemplation and solitude. All these sources show the rich diversity of artistic expression across different eras and styles, and they underscore how art continues to reflect and shape our cultural landscape. Now, before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge the sources of the images we've seen today. This slide shows the image used in our presentation, which was sourced from Facebook. Specifically, you can see the link to the media here, which points to a Facebook page. It's important to give credit where it's due, especially when using visual content from social media platforms. Recognizing our sources not only maintains transparency, but also respects the rights of content creators. Remember, whether you're creating your own presentations or sharing information, citing sources is a key part of responsible communication. Thank you for paying attention to this, and I hope it reinforces the importance of ethical practices in all our work.